The stars above Viridia Prime had always felt calm, twinkling silently over the vast mining colony. But that quiet shattered without warning one fateful day. Kyle, a young stable boy, was in the lower biostables, feeding the glowing, gentle dragons that had been raised to help with mining and transportation. Life had always been simple for him, filled with chores, the soft rustle of wings, and the warmth of creatures who trusted him completely. He had never seen battle or war, never imagined the galaxy beyond the colony, and certainly never dreamed of what would soon arrive from the void. Then came the first tremors, a strange vibration in the air followed by a distant low roar that made even the dragons restless. Kyle looked up from his work, sensing that something was wrong, and before anyone could fully grasp it, the sky above the colony erupted with massive alien ships descending in formation. These vessels were unlike anything humans had ever built, dark, angular, and enormous. They moved with silent precision, their surfaces shimmering with strange energy. Colossal shadows passed over the colony, and alarms blared, throwing the normally quiet streets into chaos. People ran in terror, grabbing weapons, loading ships, or fleeing for shelters that offered little protection. The colonists fired what they could, but the alien ships' shields barely flickered under human lasers, and entire defensive towers were torn apart with ease. Kale froze, heart pounding, unsure of what to do as the world he knew began to crumble. Amid the screams and explosions, the dragons in the stables began to stir, sensing the danger even before Kyle fully understood it. Their eyes glowed brighter, wings flaring, and they moved with a strange focus toward him, circling and emitting low roars that vibrated in his chest. Something inside Kale reacted, a pull he could not explain, as if the dragons themselves were calling to him. Fear and awe collided, but he felt a spark of purpose ignite within him. The aliens advanced relentlessly, tearing through buildings and defenses, and the colony faced the terrifying prospect of complete annihilation. Kyle climbed onto the back of the largest dragon, feeling a surge of connection as if their minds were touching, their instincts aligning. At that moment, he realized that he was no longer just a boy in a stable. He was part of something far greater. The dragons, long loyal to humans but untamed in the larger universe, now seemed to recognize him as more than a caretaker. They bowed to him, circling protectively, ready to act on his command. The tremors of alien fire and the flashing of energy beams filled the sky, but Kyle's fear began to shift into determination. Even though he was young and inexperienced, he understood that survival depended not just on the colony's weapons or numbers, but on his ability to connect with these incredible creatures. As explosions shook the ground and terrified colonists ran for cover, Cal guided the dragons into position, instinctively knowing where they could strike, where they could defend, and how they could turn the tide in the coming moments. The chaos and fear were overwhelming, yet amidst it all a sense of destiny settled over him. What had begun as a normal day tending stables had transformed into the opening of a cosmic struggle, and Kale, the boy no one had thought remarkable, was suddenly at the center of a fight for humanity's survival, bound to dragons whose power could shape the outcome of the war before it had even truly begun. In that instant, the quiet life of a stable boy ended forever, and the first chapter of a legend was born. Kale's life had changed in an instant. The once quiet stables of Viridia Prime had become the heart of a new hope for humanity, and he was no longer just a boy who fed dragons. He was their leader. At first, he did not understand the power he now held. The connection he felt with the dragons was strange and electric, as if their minds and his were speaking in a language older than words. The largest of the dragons, Veyron, lowered his massive head toward Kale, eyes glowing with intelligence, and Kale instinctively climbed onto his back, feeling a rush of energy flow through him. It was not magic, he realized, but a resonance that linked his mind to theirs, allowing him to guide their movements, anticipate their instincts, and coordinate their strength in ways no human had ever imagined. The first time he soared above the colony on Veyron, he saw the scale of the alien invasion with a clarity that was terrifying. The Shara fleet moved with precision, obliterating defenses and raining destruction on human settlements. Ordinary ships were being destroyed in seconds, yet Kale's dragons moved like living war machines, diving through enemy fire and tearing into the alien hulls with claws and plasma breath that seared metal like paper. Word of the stable boy who could command dragons spread quickly. Fleet commanders, desperate for an edge, brought Kale into the planning rooms, showing him holographic maps of alien positions and human casualties. At first he hesitated, doubting himself, but the dragons trusted him completely, and their power emboldened him. Using his link with them, he developed strategies no one else could conceive. The dragons could move faster than any ship, dodge attacks in ways that machines could not, and strike at weak points in alien formations with precision. Kale guided squadrons of dragons across battlefields in orbit and on planetary surfaces, turning what had seemed like certain defeat into a fight that humanity could survive. Each time they engaged the enemy, the humans discovered that their old ideas of strength, firepower, numbers, and shields were not enough. What mattered now was courage, ingenuity, and the bond between man and dragon. Kale learned to coordinate attacks that blended speed, stealth, and sheer force, sometimes having dragons carry small human teams to sabotage alien dreadnoughts from within. Every victory was hard-won. Ships exploded in brilliant bursts of light, dragons' wings scorched by plasma, and Kale himself narrowly survived attacks that would have killed ordinary soldiers. Still, his confidence grew with each engagement, as did the respect of commanders and crews who had once doubted him. People began to see that even a simple boy, if guided by determination and bonded with creatures as formidable as dragons, could become the spearhead of humanity's resistance. The aliens were ruthless, but Kyle's leadership introduced an unpredictable element into the war. The dragon's agility, combined with human strategy, created chaos in the enemy ranks. Colonies that had been on the brink of destruction were saved, and scattered fleets were reorganized under his guidance, proving that even against overwhelming odds, humans could fight back with intelligence, skill, and courage. At night, Kale would sit with the dragons, their glowing eyes reflecting the distant stars, feeling their trust and sharing their fatigue. The bond was not just physical but emotional, teaching him patience, empathy, and leadership. He realized that to save humanity, he would need more than weapons. He would need to inspire people to believe that the impossible was possible, that even in the shadow of a terrifying alien force, humans could rise. In those quiet moments between battles, Kale felt the weight of responsibility settle upon him. The stable boy who had once only cared for feeding dragons was now the central figure in humanity's fight for survival, and the universe had begun to take notice of a power that no one had expected: the unity of man and dragon, courage and strategy, hope and fire. Humanity's edge had emerged not from advanced technology or overwhelming numbers, but from the bond of one boy and the dragons who had chosen him. The war against the Shara spread across the galaxy, and Kale found himself in the thick of it, no longer a boy tending dragons, but a leader guiding humanity's last hope. Every system they fought in felt like a test of courage and endurance. Entire fleets of humans were outnumbered, often 10 to 1, and the aliens moved with terrifying precision, striking at colonies, mining stations, and battle fleets with cold efficiency. Kale led his dragon squadrons into the void, soaring through space above the shattered remains of human ships and twisting alien vessels. From his vantage on Veyron's back, he could see the true scale of the enemy. Thousands of ships, some massive, each bristling with weapons that could rip through metal like paper, others smaller but swift, capable of slicing through human formations. Despite the odds, Kale's dragons darted and dove, their wings shimmering with bioluminescent energy that cut through the darkness, their plasma breath striking with devastating force. Kale's mind moved with theirs, anticipating enemy maneuvers, guiding attacks that humans alone could not have executed. Each battle demanded quick thinking, precise timing, and absolute trust between man and dragon. During one particularly desperate fight near the asteroid belt of Siren, the Shara deployed a new type of dreadnought, massive and armored, capable of crushing entire human squadrons in minutes. Kale's dragons and their human partners moved as one, weaving through debris and laser fire, striking weak points in the dreadnought's hull with synchronized attacks that stunned the alien commanders. The roar of dragons and the explosion of alien ships echoed across the void, a symphony of destruction that was terrifying and beautiful all at once. Every engagement left Kyle and the dragons exhausted, their bodies burned by energy blasts, wings nicked and scorched, yet their spirits never faltered. He began to understand the depth of his own resolve and the resilience of those who fought beside him. Humans who had once doubted his abilities now saw him as the spearhead of their resistance, the key to turning despair into hope. Even as they won battles, the cost was immense. Friends were lost, starships destroyed, entire colonies abandoned. Kale felt the weight of every life in his decisions, knowing that one wrong move could doom thousands. He grew more disciplined, learning to balance fear and courage, to make choices quickly and with clarity. His dragons became extensions of himself, each movement a reflection of his strategy and heart. The Shara, sensing the new threat Kale represented, deployed their commanders directly into battle. Massive beings cloaked in shadows that controlled fleets as if they were puppets. Kyle faced these commanders with courage, leading dragons and humans into seemingly impossible situations, dodging ambushes and counterattacks, using terrain, asteroids, and even space debris to outmaneuver enemies who expected predictable tactics. The victories, though hard-won, proved that humans could adapt, innovate, and fight beyond what alien forces believed possible. Kale's squadron became legendary across the galaxy, a symbol of human ingenuity and determination. People whispered that a boy from the stables had turned the tide of war, that dragons and humans together could stand against the mightiest fleets, and that hope, once lost, had returned. Yet even as he triumphed, Kale knew the war was far from over. Each victory brought new challenges, new enemies, and new doubts to confront. But he also realized a truth. The bond between humans and dragons was more powerful than any weapon, more unpredictable than any machine, and more enduring than any fleet. In every battle, Kale proved that humanity's strength lay not in numbers or technology alone, but in courage, heart, and the will to fight against impossible odds. Every strike of dragon claws, every roar, and every plasma breath was a testament to what humans could achieve when they refused to give in, when even a stable boy could rise to command the fury of legends and inspire an entire species to endure. Even as Kale and his dragons gained victories, the war weighed heavily on him, testing both his body and spirit in ways he had never imagined. Each battle left scars, both visible and unseen. The skies were littered with the wreckage of ships, and colonies were often left in ruins, reminders of how fragile humanity's survival was. Kale mourned friends and allies who had fallen, and the dragons too bore wounds from plasma blasts and collisions in zero gravity. The connection he shared with them made every injury feel personal. He could sense their pain, their exhaustion, and their fear, and it twisted in his chest like a heavy stone. There were nights when he wondered if he was truly capable, when doubt clouded his mind and made him question whether he could carry the responsibility of guiding humanity through the storm. Yet in those moments, the dragons reminded him of the strength he could not see in himself. Veyron would nuzzle him gently, their bioluminescent scales pulsing warmly, and Kale would feel a quiet reassurance, a silent promise that together they could face anything. One of the most harrowing missions came when Kale and his squadron were sent to infiltrate a massive Shara dreadnought. Intelligence had revealed a vital weakness, but reaching it meant flying through a gauntlet of energy beams, anti-ship drones, and the alien commander's elite forces. Every decision had to be precise. Hesitation would mean death. Kale felt his heart pound in rhythm with the dragon's wings as they wove through the deadly corridors of space, dodging energy blasts that could tear through a hull in seconds. Inside the dreadnought, the claustrophobic metal corridors threatened to crush them, and Kale had to navigate not only physical obstacles, but also the psychological terror of facing an enemy that seemed omnipotent. He could feel the alien commander's presence, a dark intelligence that anticipated every move, pushing him to the brink. Kale's mind raced, balancing strategy, instinct, and the emotional weight of knowing that any misstep could destroy the lives of those relying on him. In one tense moment, Veyron's wing was nearly shredded by a sudden energy trap, and Kale had to pull the dragon out of harm's way using every ounce of skill and connection he had. The adrenaline and fear were overwhelming, but through it all, Kale discovered the depth of his own courage. He realized that leadership was not about being fearless, but about facing fear and acting decisively despite it. Each victory in these missions was bittersweet. Lives were saved, but not without sacrifice. And Kale began to understand that true resilience came not from the absence of loss, but from the ability to continue even when the cost was unbearable. The bond between Kale and the dragons deepened during these trials. They moved almost as one, reading his thoughts and emotions, trusting him to guide them through impossible situations, and in turn, teaching him patience, empathy, and strategy. Kale also learned to trust his own instincts in moments of chaos, letting the dragon's intuition and his judgment merge into a single force capable of striking at the heart of the enemy. Despite the emotional burden, Kale found moments of clarity and triumph, where the precision of their attacks and the unity of their movements allowed them to overcome overwhelming odds. The Shara commander, sensing Kyle's growing influence, began targeting him directly, sending elite forces and deadly traps designed to break his spirit. Yet each encounter strengthened Kale, teaching him that determination, intelligence, and the will to protect others could overcome even the most cunning adversary. In the quiet moments after the battles, Kale would sit with the dragons, tending to their wounds and sharing in their fatigue. understanding that leadership was as much about compassion and trust as it was about strategy and skill. The emotional and physical trials shaped him into a leader who could inspire hope and courage, not just with commands but through example, proving that humanity's strength was not measured solely by technology or numbers, but by resilience, ingenuity, and the bonds forged in the crucible of war. The final battle had arrived, and the weight of the galaxy pressed down on Kale and his dragons. The Shara fleet, vast and merciless, gathered in orbit around Terra Nova, their black ship stretching across the void like a dark storm ready to crush humanity once and for all. The human fleet was battered and outnumbered, but Kyle knew they could not retreat. On the deck of the command ship, he stood beside the fleet admirals, watching the alien armada spread into formation. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear, linked to Veyron and the other dragons, their wings coiled with energy, ready to strike. As Kale mounted Veyron and soared into space, the dragons spread out in squadrons, moving with precision and speed that no ship could match. Energy beams crisscrossed the void, lighting the darkness with bursts of plasma, explosions scattering fragments of alien metal across the stars. Kale guided the dragons with instinct and strategy, diving into the enemy lines, their claws tearing into hulls and their plasma breath igniting engines. The human ships, inspired by the dragons, executed daring maneuvers that no one thought possible, flanking the Shara and striking at weak points in their formation. Every movement was a battle of wits, a test of courage and coordination, and Kale felt the full weight of leadership on his shoulders. The Shara commander, massive and terrifying, emerged from the center of the fleet cloaked in shadows, controlling their forces like a puppeteer. Kale knew this was the moment that would decide everything. With Veyron diving straight at the commander's vessel, Kale coordinated the dragon squadrons in a synchronized strike, weaving through defenses that had seemed impenetrable and dodging energy blasts that could incinerate them instantly. The commander unleashed devastating attacks, hurling ships toward the dragons like spears and firing concentrated beams that split through the void. Kale felt the heat, the pressure, and the fear, but he did not falter. He trusted the dragons and they trusted him, moving as a single, unstoppable force. As they reached the core of the enemy fleet, Kale spotted a flaw in the commander's vessel, a weak point in the energy core that powered the armada. With precise timing, he led a coordinated assault. Dragons collided with hulls, fire erupted, and human ships fired plasma at the exposed core. The explosion was blinding, sending shockwaves across space and toppling the alien formation. One by one, the Shara ships faltered, retreating into the darkness of the void, their confidence shattered by the audacity and courage of humans and dragons together. In the aftermath, Kale and Veyron hovered above the wreckage, exhausted but victorious, watching as the remaining enemy ships fled, leaving the human fleet to regroup and recover. The battle had been costly, many dragons and humans had been lost, but the victory was undeniable. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged triumphant, not through overwhelming numbers or superior technology, but through ingenuity, courage, and the bond between man and dragon. Across the galaxy, the story of Kale's leadership spread, inspiring hope and resilience in every colony and fleet. The Shara had underestimated humans, and that mistake had cost them everything. Kale, once a stable boy, now stood as a symbol of what humanity could achieve when heart, mind, and courage were united. He looked at his dragons, feeling the bond they shared, and knew that this victory was not the end, but the beginning of a new era. An era where humans, guided by determination and unity, could face any threat no matter how terrifying and rise to meet it. The void was quiet now, but Kyle's roar echoed across the stars, a testament to human strength, resilience, and the courage to fight against impossible odds. The war had ended, but its echoes lingered across the stars, leaving behind scarred planets, shattered fleets, and memories of those who had given everything to protect humanity. Kale, once a simple stable boy, now carried the weight of legend on his shoulders. Yet he remained humble, knowing that victory had been achieved not by one person alone, but through the unity of humans and dragons working as one. The colonies began the slow task of rebuilding, repairing cities, ships, and infrastructure that had been destroyed in the relentless assaults of the Shara. Survivors told stories of the boy who rode dragons into battle, of the fearless leadership that had turned the tide when all hope seemed lost, and of the dragons themselves, creatures once seen as gentle companions, now revered as symbols of strength and courage. Kale traveled between these colonies, helping to coordinate the rebuilding efforts, training new dragon riders, and sharing his experience with those who would become the next generation of leaders. Every day brought reminders of the cost of war. Dragons with scars from battles, empty stables where comrades had fallen, and planets that would never fully recover. Yet Kale also saw signs of hope. Children laughed again, dragons soared freely through the skies, and humans, inspired by the courage they had witnessed, began to reclaim the stars with renewed determination. Kyle often returned to the stables where his journey had begun, watching over the dragons as they stretched their wings in the sunlight and took flight, their scales glinting in the light. These moments brought him peace, a quiet reminder of the bond that had saved so many lives. He would sit beside Veyron, feeling the gentle hum of the dragon's energy, and remembering the battles they had fought together, the fear and the triumph and the unwavering trust that had made them unstoppable. Though the galaxy remained vast and dangerous, Kale knew that humanity had proven something vital, that even the smallest, most humble beginnings could lead to greatness when guided by courage, heart, and unity. Stories of Kale and the dragon spread beyond the colonies, reaching distant systems where humans had once felt powerless, igniting hope and inspiring countless others to believe in their strength. Kale's legend became more than a tale of war. It became a symbol of what humans could achieve when they refused to surrender to fear, when they trusted in each other, and when they embraced the bonds that made them stronger. Even in quiet moments, he reflected on the lessons of leadership, compassion, and resilience, understanding that true strength lay not only in battle, but in the ability to protect, guide, and inspire. The dragons, too, flourished, now partners, teachers, and guardians of humanity. Their bond with Kale, a reminder that the connection between species could transcend instinct and survival, creating alliances powerful enough to change the fate of the galaxy. Kale's life, once defined by feeding creatures in a peaceful stable, had become a testament to human potential. He realized that the universe would always be filled with threats, but humanity, armed with courage, intelligence, and unity, could face them without fear. As he looked to the stars, watching young dragons take flight alongside their riders, Kale felt a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment. The boy who had once tended stables had grown into a leader, a symbol, and a hope for all humanity. And in every colony, every fleet, and every heart that had survived the darkness, the legacy of Kyle and the dragons endured, a lasting reminder that even against overwhelming odds, humans could rise, adapt, and triumph, leaving an impact that would echo across generations, inspiring courage, unity, and the belief that anything was possible when humans refused to give up. The galaxy was still vast and unpredictable, but Kale knew one truth above all: humanity had proven its worth, and with dragons at their side, nothing could stand against their resolve.